Welcome to the Batcast.
Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
I'll get drive-through.
This is why Superman works alone.
Word of me!
Martha, why did you say that name?
Vengeance.
I am the knight. I am Batman.
Red leather, yellow leather.
I'm gonna leave that in. Welcome back to another episode of the Batcast. Big episode, folks. It's the number 3. This is the Jake Williams Batman Beyond pitch, and it's pretty exciting stuff.
Episode 2 of the relaunch.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Do you find yourself looking at the little version, like the little screen of yourself, more than you do the big person?
Yeah, I do it all the time. I don't even look at the camera.
As I'm saying, I look at me down in the corner instead of like.
Anyway, this is my pitch for the Batman Beyond live action movie. Luke gave his pitch last week. If you haven't checked that out, I would recommend checking that one out first, so you get the full story, the full gist of it. As we said last week, there's a prerequisite that you have to have Michael Keaton cast in it. That's an obvious. So if Keaton isn't in it, who would be your backup? And I didn't even think about that. I don't even have a backup. That's how determined I am to have Michael Keaton in this. But if I were to have a different Bruce Wayne, I would probably go with... trying to think of an
Michael
older...
Cera.
Just go from the Lego movie? Michael Douglas. No, I would say Josh Brolin, but he's just in everything.
Yeah.
It's too easy.
I would love to pitch Western Batman, but I would go Clint Eastwood Batman.
You've said that so many times. That's like you with McConaughey. Put McConaughey.
Clint Eastwood is. I just like him as a Western old school Batman. I haven't really cast Clint Eastwood in anything else. McConaughey, I just cast as everything. Like if when in doubt, you
gotta go McConaughey.
Just drive around in Lincoln.
I'm the Batman.
See, my Batmobile's actually Lincoln too.
No, I think would be a good old Batman. Robert Redford. That's who I would have as my old Batman. But anyway, so let's get into this pitch. All right,
bitch.
I wrote some of this down, but I don't want to pull it up right now. So I'm just going to go with what I remember, and my brain will fill in the blanks. So, as I mentioned last week, I'm going to kind of have two villains in this. I'm going to use the classic Batman Beyond villain, Blight, who is actually an original Batman Beyond character who doesn't get introduced at all into Batman canon until the show. And I'm going to use a classic Batman villain, but use them in a different context. And as we joke that Luke likes to put McConaughey in everything, I like to put Mr. Freeze in everything in terms of Batman. So, because I just feel like
that's just because of all the Batman villains, Mr. Freeze is like the most human, the most relatable, understandable as to why he does what he does.
Yeah, he's just trying to keep his wife alive, He's just trying to save his wife.
Which is really, really fucked up. And I'm pretty sure it's Batman Beyond. Their canon or whatever. But after he finds the cure, he saves her. She leaves his ass.
No, that was it was Batman Sub-Zero. I think the movie.
Well, yeah, but he doesn't actually find the cure. I'm pretty sure. I don't remember what I was watching, but he finds a cure. He saves her, but she's like, "No, you're a bad guy. Like, I don't want to be with you. Sorry."
You're a bad dude.
Up.
No thanks.
Hey.
Luke's yelling at his dogs. Hey. Excuse me. So we're gonna start this movie in. It's gonna be similar to how the show opens, but I'm gonna do it in a different way. So we open up in the future, undisclosed time per se. So we open up in the movie.
Pumping your sister.
We open up with it's in Arkham Asylum. It's in the cell of Mr. Freeze, and he's just hanging out in his
Just
cell.
chilling in the cold beam.
Yeah. His one little beam of light.
Blue light bulb.
We were talking about that.
You can't survive outside the cold beam.
I can't wait to do the Batman and Robin commentary because what if he has to go to the bathroom?
You know what? Fuck it. That's what we're doing all weekend. We're just gonna drink and watch all four of the Tim Burton Schumachers
Oh, there's not enough alcohol
commentary
in the world. Anyway, who am I kidding? We always do that. Doesn't really change.
Yeah, we do.
So we start in that cell, and it's kind of it is its own like special cell. It is like a frozen kind of thing, and he's sitting there, and the shot is very reminiscent of the end of the episode Heart of Glass, where he's looking at a snow globe, but it has a picture of his wife Nora in it, and like the one tear comes down his face. Very similar shot to that. And then he hears like an alarm go off, and there's a big commotion, and he like walks up to his like metal cold door kind of thing and looks out the window, and he sees a bunch of what?
So he literally, his cell is just like the walk-in cooler.
Yeah, pretty much. It's
the-
just like this frozen thing that
awesome.
he just hangs out into, and it's got like a window so he can see out. But yeah, it's pretty much like a walk-in beer cooler.
He's on kitchen duty, so he like they have him locked in the fridge in the kitchen. He has to like hand him the food.
Yeah, he has an ice cream truck.
Oh, yeah.
He's got to serve the inmates ice cream. So yeah, he sees this big commotion coming out in the hallway, and these
Sending me
henchmen.
back to the cooler.
You're not putting me in the cooler. Okay, I guess I'm in the cooler now.
I'm sorry, I keep interrupting.
Schwarzenegger revises his classic role.
Yes.
I wish. No, I would.
Yes.
I would go a bit of a different route. But he sees. Well, I'll just get out of the way. I sent it to you. You already know. Michael Fassbender is my Victor Freeze, Mr. Freeze. I think it would be a perfect cast because Fassbender can do anything.
With contractual issues.
I don't know. I think with the Dark Phoenix, I think that would.
I
they're
heard
done
that
with it.
movie was absolutely atrocious.
Yeah, I've heard that too. So I think, like contractually, I think he'd be okay because I think that was all of their last movie. I know, like McAvoy said he's not coming back, and I don't think Fassbender would come back either. So,
Charles.
excuse me. So we have Victor Freeze looks at the window, sees the henchman shooting all the guards, killing all the guards. So he's like, and I wrote this in a way that it's funny because this is in the future, so he's been Mr. Freeze for a while. He's done this, so he's not like freaking out or anything. He's just like looking out the window, and he's kind of just like backs up from the door a little bit because he's thinking somebody's getting broken out, and I'm just gonna wait and see if somebody's gonna break me out, kind of thing. So he kind of just backs away from the window. All the guards go after him, and then you see like because it's frozen solid. Well, not necessarily frozen solid because they have to open it, but it's locked kind of thing. And he's just sitting there, and then all of a sudden you just see like a circle get cut out, and they like cut out and open the door. And the henchmen look at him, and then they just throw him like one of his like Sub-Zero armor suits. So they just throw him that, put this on. So then he's like, all right. You guys are gonna bust me out, I guess. So he puts on some.
Blue is definitely my color.
I look like a popsicle. So he puts on this the Sub-Zero like armor stuff, and he walks out. They don't give him a gun. They just kind of throw him on the armor because it's more like a grab and go kind of thing. So he puts on the armor. They get out the hallway and they're they're running through, and then all of a sudden the lights start to flicker and go in and out. And so we all know what that means. Even Freeze is like shit because he knows what that means. He's like, Batman's already shown up kind of thing. So one by one, you're seeing him like, you don't see Batman yet. You just see like kind of like Batman Begins, where you just see him like plucking him out, like taking him out from the shadows. And then so Freeze knows this and knows exactly what's happening. So he like takes cover behind like this pillar kind of thing and just like holding out kind of thing because he doesn't have a gun. And then he looks at a henchman and is like, hey, throw me a gun so I can do something. And as the henchman goes to grab the holster, Batman shows up again, takes him out, and Freeze is like, son of a... So Freeze is running, and as he's running, I think the shot would be focused on Freeze, like running through the hallway, and as he's running, dudes are just getting plucked off, like one by one kind of thing, real quick. And then the lights flicker, go out, and then they turn back on, and Batman does like the Undertaker kind of thing and just stands right in front of him. And that's when you get the full shot and you see the Batman Beyond advanced suit for the first time. It's just Bruce Wayne standing in front of Mr. Freeze. And he's just like, hello, Victor. Long time no see. Or he's like, no, he said, hello, Victor. And then he goes, hi kind of thing. And he goes, let's just get this over with. So they start fighting, and like he swings at Batman. And as he's swinging, like Batman like ducks away, like pushes his arm over, elbows him in the back of the head, and like as he's grabbing his head and like trying to get his bearings, Batman takes his heel and stomps into the back of his knee. So like he's like falling down on like all fours. And as he's doing that, he's trying to find a gun, or he's looking down and Batman's standing over him to punch him again, but like Freeze sweeps his legs and actually manages to knock him down. And then he reaches over, they scramble, he grabs a gun and shoots at him, but Batman manages to dodge it and like kicks the gun. But in that commotion, it's like the cartoon now. He like clutches his heart. Like he's having the heart attack like in the cartoon. So he's like clutches and falls down, and while he's down, Freeze kicks him in the gut a few times. like fuck you. He like kicks him in the gut a few times, and then he realizes, oh, he's kind of old. He's not really fighting back right now because he's just like screaming in pain and like hurting. And then in that little moment of weakness, Batman grabs the gun and shoots a warning shot at him, and just kind of stares at him. And Freeze just was like, shit, and then just like runs away. And then Batman does the classic, like gets on his ear and is like, Alfred, I'm down.
like they wouldn't cross-reference people who can afford that shit and people who like know a guy named Alfred.
Right? Who keeps screaming, like every time Batman gets hurt, he always screams for this guy named Alfred. Who could it be? So yeah, he screams, he calls Alfred, and then the screen just cuts. And then so he's like falling down, and it just follows Freeze out. And then Freeze meets with Blight. He meets with God, what's his name? Is it? Oh, God, I can't think of his name right now. I know it's Powers. Hold on, I'll Google that real quick. But yeah, he meets up with Powers. Powers is the one who sprung him free. That's the whole gist. And so we're kind of going along the storyline of the cartoon. There was an episode, and I had mentioned it. I don't remember if I mentioned on the air or not, but I mentioned it to you, and that's kind of like the storyline I wanted to go with.
It was Derek Powers.
Derek Powers. And the storyline in the TV show is he, and I was going to keep with that theme. And the storyline of this TV show, he brings back Mr. Freeze to use a clone body on him to say, look, he already had a pre-existing condition. If this can eliminate his condition, I can use this body for me, because Derek Powers becomes radioactive and turns into the supervillain Blight, and he tries to use Mr. Freeze's symptoms to do that as well.
Which Blight is a good character because he's not a Batman. He's not just a Batman villain. He's a Bruce Wayne villain. So it's like they're like competitors in the business world, and
and it's kind of cool because it plays with that, because it's the first time you see like a villain that's separate from Bruce Wayne and Batman, because you don't have Bruce Wayne being Batman. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So you have Terry fighting him, but you also have Bruce fighting him. So that's the end of that. That's the big opening scene, is the whole Arkham escape kind of thing. And Derek gets him and he's like, "You don't know me, but I know who you are, and you're going to help me. I have Nora." So Victor's like, "Nora, Nora, you have my wife. No, what is she doing?"
No, Nora.
So then it cuts to Alfred driving Bruce back to Wayne Manor, back to the Batcave, and Bruce kind of wakes up, and Alfred's like, "This is happening more and more." And Bruce goes, "I know." And then, very similar to the cartoon, he just says, "Never again. I almost killed someone tonight. I almost killed Mr. Freeze." And he's like, "Well, you can't just..." That's the internal struggle he has. He's like, "Well, that sucks that you almost killed him, but like, Freeze is still out there." You still can't let him not do anything. He's like, "I don't know. I'll call up Clark or somebody. We'll figure it out. Like, I can't keep doing
Clark's
this."
old as fuck too, man.
Yeah, Clark's dead.
Fuck that guy.
So then this is how we meet Terry. He's in high school. I would say probably like I would keep it the similar age to where he's like 16 to 18 kind of thing. We got to him in school, just being Terry, and kind of do that. We build up his love interests, and then this is what I thought was going to be interesting, is how I'm kind of incorporating a lot of the cartoon into this, because the whole reason Terry becomes Batman is Derek Powers, like we were mentioning, Derek Powers' company is trying to take over Wayne Enterprises. And Terry's dad knows that what Derek is doing is illegal, because he's using this like radioactive poison gas, like weaponizing this nuclear gas. And that's kind of how he made his fortune. And he's like, we can't do that kind of thing. So I think at this point, I'm going to do a little bit of a time jump and jump, because they jump 20 years in the cartoon. I don't know if I want to jump that far in this, because I still want it to keep fresh with why did Derek break out Victor and stuff like that. So I want it to be that Derek still is Blight when he breaks out Victor, but he doesn't become the supervillain yet. He's not crazy yet. You know what I mean? Like, the accident hasn't or it's happened, but he's still finding ways to like manage it. But at this point, I would say like 6 months into the future, he's still trying to figure it out, and he can't figure it out. So that's why he brought Victor, because Victor had spent all this time trying to save Nora, and like he knows things about biology, neuroscience and biology science and all sorts of science words, and I don't really know what they mean.
Stage 1.
Yeah.
Take 2 of these and come in the morning. So stupid.
So we jump ahead like 6 months, and we meet Terry. He's at school with all these things, and his dad recently died, and he's trying to investigate why his dad died. And as he's investigating these things, it leads him to, at this point, Powers has already successfully taken over Wayne Enterprises. And this is what leads him to Batman. So this leads him to Bruce. So that's what he's been trying to investigate this stuff. So that's what leads him to Bruce Wayne. And it's like recently Powers just merged with Wayne Enterprises, and he's like, whoa, my dad had worked with Wayne Enterprises, and he was a part of this merger. I got to figure this out, whatever, however he gets there. He goes to Wayne Manor, knocks on the door. Alfred answers and is like, look, I know this is kind of weird. My name's Terry McGinnis. I'm here to talk to Mr. Wayne about my dad. And Alfred's like, I mean...
Alfred's still alive? Are you fucking me right now?
Well, this is only 6 months after the heart attack episode.
Yeah, but...
This isn't like the full 20-year jump.
Oh, all right. Jesus.
Although he would be really old.
That's what
at
I'm
this
saying.
point.
He's like... Because if Bruce is 70...
You're right, because
like
I'd also
million.
be in... I'd also be setting this in the future, so you're right. So Bruce answers the door, which shocks Terry. He's like, oh, shit. He's like, don't you have a butler for that? And he's like, not anymore. Starts crying, not anymore. Where'd you bring that up? Anyway.
Dead.
And then he's like, I need to talk to you about my dad. And he's like, look, I know a lot of people's dads, man, and Wayne Enterprises is huge. How am I supposed to know who he is? Well, it has to do with Derek Powers. And he's like, okay, come in. Because even though Wayne kind of signed the checks, like Bruce signed it and everything, agreed to the merger, Bruce was kind of just he's a recluse now, so he doesn't really care about his company anymore. It's similar to like Dark Knight Rises, where he's like, I don't even care. Who cares? I'm still going to have all this money. I'm not going to be Batman, whatever.
Angsty teenager.
So, yeah, peeing in jars. So he lets him in and kind of tells a story about how his dad died and there was a horrible accident and it had to do with stuff with the Powers Company before the merger with Wayne Enterprises and all this stuff. And he's like, ooh, that's pretty intriguing. And then, it's like he has two faces.
Jim.
And he's like, well, I'll do everything I can. I'll get some records and see if I can check anything in my database. And then he, this isn't as bad as Dark Knight Rises. I'll admit, this is kind of silly. But Terry notices something about Bruce's voice. He's like, this guy sounds familiar. And it's like, well, yeah, it could sound familiar. It could be Bruce Wayne. He's been on TV. He's a billionaire. But then he starts to think back, and then Terry has a flashback of when he was there was a mugger, and it was a very similar situation to what happened with Bruce and his family, and Batman steps in and saves him. So he remembered that voice. He remembered the nice voice about him. Not necessarily the voice, but he remembered. He had a similar. I don't know what the phrase would be, but he had a similar phrase to what he said that night. And then he's like,
"You want to get nuts?
That's.
Come on, let's get nuts."
That would be a great one. Or I'm trying to think of another Keaton line. Selena, I am. Rip
We're
off
the same.
my mask.
Hey, Alfred, get Knox a grant.
Anyway, Terry, gets the information. He goes back home, gets some information, and then he's like trying to figure that out. Meanwhile, we cut to Derek Powers and Victor Fries. And Derek Powers, who I think would be played by Zac Efron.
The guy from what's the fucking Country for Old Men or whatever the fuck it is.
Javier Bardem.
Yeah.
Oh, I can see that. He's like, all right, Victor, we've been working at this 6 months. I need something. And he's like, I don't have the money.
Keep going. I gotta let my
I
dog.
don't know. I think my Terry McGinnis, I would hate to say Zac Efron because he's getting too old for that, but that's who I'd like to see. But I can't really do that.
Just catch the same guy.
Hold on. The guy that's Beast Boy.
Yeah.
I know you didn't like this movie, but I wanted to use one of the guys from from the Power Rangers movie, and I was trying to remember what his name was. One of the dudes. I'm gonna pull it up real quick. But anyway, so we cut to Powers, and he's like, "Look, oh yeah, that's Billy from Stranger Things." Okay, yeah.
Jason?
I want Bill. Yeah, I want Billy from Stranger Things to be my Terry McGinnis.
This is the guy.
So he.
I chose.
I need to watch that because he's in. You can't really see it.
Is it?
Oh, there it is. A little bit. Yeah.
Huh.
I can see that. Oh, by the way, the season 2 of Titans is coming out in September.
Hey,
I need to watch.
Can we just do a podcast on the DC universe?
I want to do. Yeah, I need to watch Titans so we can do a whole episode on season 1 Titans, getting ready for season 2. Because technically Batman's in that. So. So we cut to that, and Victor's like, "Well, Derek, you have all these resources. It's just it takes time." And then he's like, "I don't have time." And then you see his like, when he slams his fist down, you start to see his knuckles and the skin on his hand start to splinter and crack a little bit.
That?
And a little bit, and it's like, "What's wrong?" And he goes, "Just get back to work." And he leaves, and Victor's like, looks back at his snow globe, and he's like, "I don't worry, Nora. I'm doing this for you. I'm gonna get to you, kind of thing." And then so we cut back to Terry, and he goes back to, he finds out, and then he starts to think, he starts to put things together, and then he gets an email from Bruce Wayne, which is also like, holy shit, Bruce Wayne's emailing. That's cool. But at the same time, he's also being tracked by Bruce because it's Bruce Wayne, and he would do something like that. Like, even though he's a recluse, he still has the Batman tendencies, and he pats him on the back. He bugs one of his jackets, kind of thing.
He's wearing more than one jacket.
And yeah, because he sees the detective skills in Terry, and he sees something in Terry, and he's thinking.
No, I'm saying he's
I know
wearing
Frieza's
more
out
than one jacket.
there.
Because you said jackets.
Oh yeah.
One of his jackets.
He looks at a picture of him and he jacks it. I mean, he ain't gay or nothing, but I miss you, Dick. Anyway,
I miss your dick.
Anyway,
that's a whole nother
so
podcast.
He liked him, so he pats him on the back. He manages to get a tracker on one of the jackets that he has, so he can trace him. Because he thinks, just based on his detective skills and his determination to seek out the truth and everything, he kind of sees some of himself in Terry, and he sees the potential of a new Batman kind of thing. So he's kind of bugged him and listening in to what Terry's doing, and he emails him to meet back at my house. And so Terry comes back to the Wayne Manor, and he's like, "What I'm about to tell you is something I've only shown a few people in my life, and those people are either, have a family and moved on from me, or they're dead. So this is important." And then he shows, boom, the Batcave. And then he's all like, "Well, that's cool." And he says, "If you want to be Batman, you have to talk like this."
With your speech classes. No, he's got to be deeper.
Damn it, try harder. So then he's like, "Well, wait, you're Batman? Like, what's going on?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm Batman." And then he's like, "Here's what we would do. Here's how it would be great. It would be really cheesy and dumb, but I would love it." As he goes, "I've only told a few people." And he goes, "What are you trying to say?" And as he says that, he turns on the lights to the Batcave. And then Keaton looks at him and goes, "I'm Batman."
Yes.
Like he does in the 1989 movie.
No, I want him to do
like,
the Selena first. He's like, "We're the same."
Oh, yeah, he does that. He goes, "Terry, you don't understand. You're just like me. We're the same." And he goes, "What do you mean?" And then he turns on the lights and he goes, "I'm Batman." So then, okay, now we know that Terry's Batman. And this is where he starts to pick up. He says, okay, so here's what we know about Derek Powers. But he goes, here's the suit. And because it's an action movie and we need to have action scenes, we have a scene very reminiscent of when when Chris O'Donnell stole the bat suit or Batmobile. Terry gets the bat suit and immediately just
bolts,
makes Bruce regret it, and he's like, I'm gonna go, and like goes back to his high school and finds and we'll pepper it in throughout the story. There's some bullies that pick on his nerdy friend because you have to have that in these kind of movies, right? So he like shows up and he's just like, what up? And they're like, Batman, I thought you were dead. I thought you were fake. And he's just like, oh, I'm real. And he comes in and like beats him up. And Bruce, meanwhile, is watching this whole thing like.
Which is one thing that I find hilarious about the cartoon. It's all of these many, many years into the future, and there's still people that think he's not real. Like, there's all this proof, there's all this shit. Like, hey, Batman's a thing. Just an old story. Parents told kids to behave.
And then Bruce is like, all right, that's it. Give me my suit back. And he's like, what are you talking about? He goes, give me my suit back. You haven't earned it. And then as that's happening, a real crime is taking place. And you can hear like the interference on his like scanner. Because I can't remember if they did this in the cartoons, but I would imagine like the cow would have like a police scanner or some sort of like database, you know? So then that's when you see like the tech really start to kick in, because he's like, all right, hit the right, the right side of your mask, and he like hits it, and then like a projection comes out of the mask, like a holographic thing, kind of like an iron.
I was gonna say, what would be cool is if it was kind of like the Iron Man, like Jarvis, but to like keep it alive, they call it the Oracle or whatever. So it's
the Oracle system. Yeah. That'd be cool. That makes sense. And I think you should have like the white eyes, and that's wise, because he has or it could be like red eyes, but he has lenses, and that's why, because it would be like a heads up display like Iron Man. And it's like, okay, so it like triangulates that, and then he shows up, and then Terry like actually fights down, saves him, saves a kid, all that stuff. So then Bruce is like reassured, it was like, okay, he's kind of a shithead, but when push comes to shove, he can be a hero.
So are the other 23 kids I trained.
Just look over and there's just a pile of dead bodies. Because he just.
Oh, come on, I know. Like,
I thought I could trust them.
Just got all the Robins in a big pile of bodies. It's fucked up.
I finally. Well, he couldn't let them, run their mouths. So this is where the storyline kind of starts to pick up for Mr. Freeze, because he's still working, and they finally start running tests, and he's like, because he's initially hired to see if he's there to cure Nora's problems, and he's like, your ability to preserve her shows that you have ability to and his whole thing is he wants to preserve his skin, so he knows how to do this kind of thing, so that's why he brought him in. So he's like, I got a vial here to test, and then Blight's like, give me this, I'm taking this, and he's like, let me see how this works. He takes it, and the first day he starts going to board meetings, he seems fine, and he's all right, and then it starts to go on, and then we progress this, we go to the next day, nothing's really happening. By the third day is when it starts to crack, and he starts to notice, like, he's in the middle of a meeting, and then it like starts to crack along his forehead, and they're like, what's going on? And like they think he's bleeding or something, and he's like, or like I don't know, something on his face. I don't know if it'd be his head or his nose or whatever, but like, what's going on? And he's like, oh, hold on, I gotta leave. And he leaves, and his skin falls off, like his nose falls off, and that's when you see just like the skull, and it's like glowing, the like transparent green glow that it has, and it's starting to rip open his face more, and he's like, oh god. And he just runs to Victor. He runs back to the lab. Victor's like, oh boy, I get to see my wife soon. Like, he's like, kind of, it's not going to be like a silly, cheesy, like dress up montage, but it'd be like him just like setting everything in order, getting ready to see her, and be able to finally, because he's also working on a project on the side to save her. And he's also making extra vials to save her, I guess. And then Derek comes up, and then like at this point, he comes in and yells at Freeze, and his whole face just comes off, and he goes, "What have you done to me?" And his like face is just peeled all the way off. And Freeze is like, "This is not what I signed up for." And that's when he kind of goes on a rampage, and like fully his skin just completely comes off, and then he hits Freeze and like beating up on Freeze, and that's when we get the tip off from God, can't think of it, Terry. And Bruce had also been running that investigation, and they're linking stuff to Powers, and they'd been finding out throughout the movie. They start to piece together that he had been working on like dangerous, like illegal, weaponized, like nuclear gas for the military and like mercenaries kind of thing. And so they know about it, and they're starting to patch it up. So then Terry shows up at the Powers Wayne place. So this is all going down. This is kind of, I mean, there'd be more in between, but I'm just kind of cutting to the chase. This is where we get to the third act fight between Blight and Batman, and they're having to throw down, and Freeze is like, this is where Freeze kind of has his redemption arc, where he realizes that he's probably not going to make it out of this fight, but he's fighting, and he does the Batman and Robin thing when he's like, "Take 2 of these." But he gives them to Terry, and he goes, "I'm not going to make it out. You tell my wife, when this works and saves my wife, you tell her I love her." And the Terry's like, "I won't have to."
You can tell her yourself.
So, I want to. Well, the whole, I guess, how what happens is Batman fights him off, but he doesn't end the fight. Blight gets away, kind of thing, and that's where Batman takes Freeze back to the Batcave. Bruce is like, apparently he knows that Victor isn't this horrible person anymore. He trusts him enough to be in the Batcave, I guess. But he takes him back, and then that's when you see Freeze has been like doing like augmentations to himself. So then you see like he has like robotic like gauntlets on his arm that keep him cool all the time, so he doesn't have to wear a suit. And then he uses like technology to build from that technology he's been using. He's been building armor on himself, kind of thing, kind of turning himself into like this robot man
I would
thing.
have figured he would just, get Under Armour, get Thermocool.
Yeah, but that's not cyberpunk enough.
No, I'm saying like he actually just goes and buys Under Armour, and it keeps him cool.
He gets dry fit.
Yeah. Which would, I mean, that would kind of be cool. Like he's just got like the technology built into clothes now. I mean, I get the
cool,
cyberpunk angle, but
so eventually, yeah, he just kind of builds a new suit. Like he takes the same concept of that technology and builds a suit around it for the final fight that's going to happen. And that's where we see him go back to the lab, and he's like, "We got to take it to Blight. We got to figure out where he's going. We know where he's going." He's like, "I do too, but we got to make a stop here." That's where he said he goes to get the extra vials to save his wife, and that's where he says to Terry, "Give these to my wife." And then Terry's like, "You won't have to."
you can kill yourself.
Then they have their final fight with Blight, and in this fight, Freeze is holding his own, Batman's holding their own. They're fighting, they're taking him down, and then it gets to a point where he knocks off Freeze and takes him down. And then very similar to the cartoon, he's like, Blight's going in for the kill on Batman. And that's when Freeze sacrifices himself and like takes his freeze gun and like does this like huge blast to like take out Blight and kill Blight. And it like explodes and kills him at the same time. And then he like at the final thing, he looks at Terry, and Terry's like, "I'm sorry, I couldn't save you. I'm sorry." And he goes, "Don't worry about me. Just save Nora." And then has like that one tear come down his face like he does in the beginning. And he dies. And then Terry goes, gives the like cure to Nora and saves Nora. And she gets new life out of this and all that stuff. And then Terry continues to be Batman. And that's it. But the post-credit scene, it's just black, and then you hear You know, with radiation, you know that clicking sound of a Geiger counter you hear? You just hear that, and then you slowly see a hand come out of the ground. Like saying that, oh, Blight isn't dead.
Just like all the other movies in the franchise, other than Returns.
So yeah, that's my pitch.
Good. That's good.
I like mine better,
Mine's
but
no, yours is more on the story and the Mr. Freeze aspect. You got more content as to the dramatic, and mine's just a murder mystery. Just everybody dies with a little bit.
yeah, I want to incorporate as much of the cartoon, but being different from the cartoon as I can. So, yeah. So yeah, there you go. There's my pitch for Batman Beyond. Did you like it? If not, then I don't want you to listen to the show anymore. So fuck you. Whose did you like more? Did you like Luke's? Did you like mine? Somewhere in between. Luke, here's the question. So now that we have the Batman Beyond movie pitched, we got to ask ourselves this. What do we do next?
Well, I think that because this one was so structured, like, it's a 2-part, yours, mine, and we both prepared and, like, studied it to where we already knew who was going to be this, who was going to be that. We got it. I think we should do something we did before in a different podcast. I think we did it for pitches and shows. But I want to bring that, like, randomness to where we just pick a song, like a random ass song, and you have to pitch and cast a Batman movie on that song. So, Spin Doctors, Pocket Full of Kryptonite. That's you have to pitch me a movie on that song. You know what I'm saying? Well, we can't use that, which would have been awesome, but we can't now. Fuck, I want that movie. I already know what I'm gonna do for that movie, but
we gotta have like a randomizer type thing.
Yeah. Or
all right.
Charlie Pluth, Superman got nothing on me, and it's just Batman on a balcony, just.
Or Our Lady Peace has a song "Superman is Dead," so there's that. Something along those lines.
Three Doors
All right,
Down.
that'll be interesting. I think what we should do with that too is get a random the suggestion, but then we both help each other pitch. So we're both doing it at the same time.
Both, yeah, all right, I got you. We'd have to have a moderator.
Yeah, we both brainstorm.
I would want somebody else in here that's like fresh ears.
Can kind of guide the ship and be like, okay, but what does that mean? Or what is this? Yeah, we got to do that too. But yeah, I'm into it. We could definitely do that. And in a few weeks, we'll be doing a review of Batman Hush, so that's exciting.
And if you guys have a topic, something you want us to see or do, feel free to comment below and we'll do it. We probably won't, but we'll try.
We'll think about it. That's the most important thing. Don't forget to like and comment and subscribe and click the bell and tell me I'm pretty and all that stuff.
Fondle the bat nips.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. A good night.